Welcome to the deep dive. Yesterday in New York City, something really unusual happened. The Mexican Navy training ship, the Cuauhtémoc, actually collided with the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah, it's quite an image, isn't it? A historic sailing ship and, well, one of the most famous bridges in the world.
Exactly. So we're here to try and understand, what happened.
Right. And it immediately brings up questions, like you said, about these beautiful old ships navigating busy modern waterways. Our goal is really just to piece together what we know at this point.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Lay out the core facts for us. What exactly went down?
Okay, so it was Saturday, May 17th, 2025, around 8:22 p.m. Eastern Time. The Cuauhtémoc, the Mexican Navy's training ship, was sailing out, and its masts hit the underside of the Brooklyn Bridge.
Hit the underside. And this was as it was leaving, where? Pier 17?
Yeah, that's right, leaving Pier 17 in Lower Manhattan.
And this wasn't just a scrape, was it? The impact sounds like it was, well, pretty significant.
Tragically, yes, very significant. We know 2 crew members died.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Out of 277 people on board, reports say they fell from one of the masts.
Fell from the mast. And injuries, too.
Yes, quite a few. Initial numbers were around 19 to 22 people injured. Some seriously, even critically, according to early reports.
Oh, wow. That's a heavy toll. So why was this ship, a Mexican Navy trainer, in New York anyway?
It was part of a global goodwill tour. They sail around the world. It had actually been docked at the South Street Seaport since the Tuesday before.
Okay.
This whole world trip started in Acapulco back on April 6th. And after New York, the plan was to head to Iceland.
Iceland, okay. And pretty quickly people started guessing about the cause, right? This doesn't just happen.
No, exactly. The early word was some kind of mechanical issue,
Yeah.
that maybe the ship lost power somehow. Even the NYPD Special Operations Bureau mentioned something about the captain potentially losing control because of that.
But that's still early days, investigation-wise.
Absolutely. Crucial to remember that. It's preliminary. The National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB, they're investigating now to find the definite cause.
Right. Okay. It's hard to picture the moment of impact. What did it actually look like? What do we know about the immediate aftermath?
Well, we have eyewitness accounts, and some video footage has surfaced. It shows the masts, these huge masts, hitting the bridge structure underneath.
Wow.
And you can see them just, snap, fracture on impact, debris falling down onto the ship's deck.
Goodness. And you mentioned people falling. Witnesses saw this.
Yes, tragically. Witnesses described seeing people struggling up on the masts right after the hit. A really shocking scene for bystanders.
Just awful. And we know the casualties, the 2 deaths. What about the injured breakdown?
Yeah, 2 crew members died from the fall. The injury numbers fluctuated a bit initially. Mayor Adams mentioned 19 injured, 2 seriously. The Mexican Navy later confirmed, I think, 22 injuries total, with 19 needing hospital care.
And some were still clinging to the masts after the impact.
Disturbing reports, yeah. Sailors who had been up in the rigging were seen clinging to the damaged masts.
Unbelievable. Let's talk about the ship itself, the Cuauhtémoc. What kind of vessel are we talking about?
It's a pretty impressive ship, a 297-foot-long, 3-masted bark.
A bark?
Yeah, a bark, B-A-R-Q-U-E. It was built in Spain back in 1981. It was primarily a training ship for Mexican Navy cadets, officers.
Okay.
But it's also, a symbol for Mexico. They call it the Ambassador and Knight of the Seas.
Right. And a bark, just quickly, what defines that kind of rigging?
Good question. Basically, at least 3 masts. The front 2, the foremast and mainmast, have square sails, like you picture on old pirate ships. But the rear mast, the mizzenmast, has sails running fore and aft along the line of the ship. It's a versatile setup for different winds, good for training on long trips.
Makes sense. So its main job is training future sailors.
Exactly. And part of that training, a big tradition on these tall ships, is having the sailors climb to the masts, stand in the rigging, especially when arriving or leaving port.
Ah, so people were up there as part of a ceremony?
It seems very likely, yes. It's ceremonial, but also builds seamanship, discipline, connects them to history. These ships often do regattas, goodwill tours. It's all part of the mission.
Okay, so it left South Street Seaport, heading for Iceland. What's involved in sailing a ship like that out of New York Harbor? It must be complex.
Oh, absolutely. You've got tides, currents, wind, all the other boat traffic. It requires really careful planning. Often, local harbor pilots come aboard to guide large vessels in and out because they have that specialized knowledge.
Right.
And if those early reports of losing power are true, well, losing control in those tight waterways near the bridge, that would be incredibly difficult, almost impossible to manage.
So circling back to that potential call, the mechanical issue, What's the latest understanding there?
Well, like we said, the initial buzz was mechanical issue, loss of power, captain losing control. The NYPD stated that publicly as their assessment pretty early on.
Mhm.
But now it's really in the hands of the NTSB. They're the ones doing the deep dive, the full investigation. They'll look at everything, maintenance logs, talking to the crew, any data recorders, maybe bring in engineering experts. They'll figure out the exact sequence.
Got it. And the emergency response? Must have been huge.
It was, yeah. Over 100 personnel from the FDNY Fire EMS rushed to the scene.
Oh.
Marine units, police boats on the water too. They set up command posts on both sides of the river, Brooklyn and Manhattan, to coordinate everything.
And the injured got to hospitals quickly.
Seems so, yes. They were transported to nearby hospitals. And then the ship itself, the Cuauhtémoc, was moved later to Pier 36 so everyone else could get off safely.
Okay. What about the bridge? The Brooklyn Bridge? Any damage? That must have been a huge concern.
Huge concern. But amazingly, the initial inspections found it structurally sound. No visible damage reported.
Really? After being hit by masts that size?
Apparently so. Traffic was stopped for maybe 40 minutes while they checked it out, then reopened.
Incredible. What's the height difference again?
The bridge clearance at the center is about 135 feet,
Okay.
and the ship's masts were reported around 158 feet tall. So, yeah, a significant difference. Clearly explains the collision.
It really does. Speaks volumes about the bridge's construction, I guess.
Built to last, definitely.
Yeah.
19th century engineering holding up.
And we heard from officials, both Mexican and New York leaders.
Yes. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum expressed condolences, called it an unfortunate accident.
Mm.
Said the Navy was supporting the injured, the ambassador and consulate were involved, and they were monitoring closely.
Okay.
And New York's Mayor Eric Adams gave updates on the casualties and the response efforts here.
And the Mexican Navy itself.
They put out a statement, too. Acknowledged it happened, confirmed they were reviewing everything, the situation, the condition of their people, the ship.
It's just such a remarkable and tragic story. A ship with that kind of history hitting an icon like the Brooklyn Bridge and people losing their lives, it's hard to process.
It really is. It highlights, doesn't it, the complexities. These beautiful traditional ships operating in our very modern, very busy world.
Mm-hmm.
And the potential for things to go wrong, even with experienced crews, even during what seemed like routine departures. A stark reminder about safety.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key things for listeners to take away?
I think the main points are the tragic collision itself, the Cuauhtémoc hitting the Brooklyn Bridge, the terrible loss of 2 crew members, and the many injuries. The context is leaving NYC on a goodwill tour.
Right.
The likely factor, though still under investigation, seems to be mechanical failure, a loss of power. And importantly, the NTSB investigation is ongoing to find the definitive cause.
And the bridge is okay.
And the bridge, thankfully, seems structurally fine.
It really does make you think, like you said, about that intersection, maritime history, modern infrastructure, and how things can unexpectedly go wrong.
Absolutely. It raises questions about operating historic vessels today, ensuring safety for everyone involved, for the infrastructure too.
Well, for those of you listening, if this has sparked your interest, you might want to look into the history of the Cuauhtémoc itself, its role for Mexico, or maybe the incredible engineering story of the Brooklyn Bridge. Both offer, fascinating background to the elements that came together in this sad event. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.